Hello, encouragers. I'm Rebecca Scott, wife, mother of 4, author, and owner and designer of Rebecca Scott Designs. I'm here to encourage you, to make you feel that I can do this spirit each and every day of our awesome journeys to fulfill those many important roles. I believe we are fully equipped to execute, and I will provide you with as much knowledge and practices and systems as I can to help you understand just what I know you can do. Execute. We got this. Hello, encouragers. On today's podcast, I want to talk in a little bit more detail about what we are planning for 2021 personally for you. Because of what our nation has been through, and every one of us personally, how we switched gears and kept having to reread the rules and reread the regulations and update ourselves on news and the schools and what our jobs meant and switching gears. Normally in the month of January, I love it. It's my favorite month of the year. It's also my birthday month, but I love the month of January because everybody is starting fresh. We've got new goals. We've got new objectives. We've got all this fire in our belly. But this January, I think will be more about reflection. I think we'll go, whoa, what was 2020 for me? How did it shape me? How did it mark me? How did it change my family and my business? So I think, and I'm giving you permission to take the month of January to really reflect. Now, I still want you to goal plan. I mean, after all, it's January and it's so much fun to get that new surge in our belly, even if we are still amidst this or whatever that means. I still want you to goal plan, but I also want you to spend the majority of the month reflecting. So I've got a couple of practical things that I want you to sit down and do that will help you to reflect, or rather review 2020. Because if we do not stop and review what 2020 meant for us, we will just jump into the next thing, not remembering how well we did with 2020, how well we adjusted or didn't adjust, whatever it is. We need to recognize what happened in 2020. Not just glaze over it, not just work harder, or even work smarter, but to reflect on what it did. What did I learn from it? What did I grow? What did I completely end in 2020? So I do want to give you a time. I want you to take an hour to do this. And the reason I put time to it is because I don't want you to just spend 3 minutes. I want you to be in a reverent mode as if you are sitting in a church pew reviewing this. In an uncomfortable church pew where you're just on the wood reviewing what 2020 meant for you, okay? So spend an hour reviewing and reflecting, okay? I gave you the time, and I want you to schedule this in. Now I'm going to give you a couple of easy tips on how I want you to write this. We will also have this as a free resource on our website, theencouragerpodcast.com, okay? So in your 2020 review, I want you to write down what were your best moments. We're going to start with that, right? Was it in July when you'd figured out how you were going to operate different in your family or your business? Like you've been in it since March. What were your best moments? And it can be for business, or maybe it's for family, or maybe it's personally. You met a workout goal. You met a business goal. What were your best moments for 2020? Next, I want you to write, what were your worst moments? If you don't pause and think about what your worst moments were, what if you end up repeating them? Okay, what were your worst moments? Was it the slowest sales week you've ever had? Was it that you realized you're a terrible homeschooling mother? that was one of mine. What were your worst moments? Maybe you lost loved ones. Maybe you were grieving. Okay, what were your worst moments of 2020? Now, I want you to ask yourself, or if you're privileged and have a staff, ask yourself or your staff for 2 to 3 highlights of 2020. Now, highlights just mean moments that you marked, like, hey, this is really good, or man, this really changed things for us. So ask your staff for 2 or 3 highlights from each one of them, and then also reflect for yourself. What were your 2 to 3 highlights? Maybe it was sales highlights, like we didn't know this collection would really take off. We didn't know this system would be so smooth. We didn't know this idea would super take off. What were 2 to 3 highlights of 2020? Ask yourself and also your staff, because they may have a whole different perspective on that. Maybe it was a website thing or a report that they could run. What were 2 to 3 highlights from 2020? Now, I want you to reflect and review on what were your most profitable decisions. Now, this is kind of fun, and you may have to involve your accountant or your social media gal, but who and what were your most profitable decisions? What product took off? What service took off? Where did you end up making money that you're like, I did not know I would be able to recover like that? Because we did have those moments. There were also moments that were bad, but right now I want you to write the most profitable ones, because if you reflect on what were the most profitable decisions, could you amp that up in 2021? Are you even aware of what the most profitable decisions were? If you don't reflect on it, how could you repeat it if you're not actually looking back to find out what was the most profitable decision for me? Okay. What was your best month? So similar to the most profitable decisions, you may be able to narrow that down and go, okay, what month did that land in? And why was that month amazing? Right? We're going to take the positive on this part because I'm sure you had months that were the worst, but I want you to write what was the best month and then why. Was it because you were laser focused on, you had a really bad month, so that month you were like, I cannot do that again. I'm going to try every last thing I possibly can for this month to make things more profitable? Was that why? Was it because you let go of some things that weren't working, some systems or some products that weren't working, and introduced new ones? Were you laser focused? Were you more family focused? And so it allowed you to be more joyful and more free creatively? What was your best month and then why? What was your most rewarding moment? Now, this is going to take a long time. I really do want you to sit with this. Remember, you're going to take an hour to do this reflection and review of 2020. What was your most rewarding moment? And this may not be for the business. This could totally be a family moment where you just realized all those movies or those snuggle times or those sun tea on the porch. What was your most rewarding moment? Or was it when your child said, Mom, I can't believe how well you've adjusted. Or your husband said, you've nailed it. Or I'm really impressed with how you're handling all of this. Or whatever it might be, reflect. What was your most rewarding moment? Again, when you reflect and you recognize it, you could repeat it. Then I want you to practically write down, what are the books that you read in 2020, right? Maybe you had more time to read and you were like, I am going to finally dig into The Profit First that Rebecca keeps mentioning, right? Or maybe you took a new course on. So I want you to write down all the books you read for 2020. Go ahead, look at your Audible account, look at your nightstand. What were the books you read in 2020? Because when we consume so much information, especially in a year like 2020, where we're like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to switch gears. I'm trying to gain every bit of knowledge I can. We forget where we got information and we don't give it proper credit or the proper source. Okay. So in your list on your resource guide here that you'll be able to print off, I want you to write down all the books you did for 2020. Then I want you to write down any of the courses that you took for 2020. Maybe you had more time and you're like, I desperately need to get better at sales on my Shopify site, or I need a course on mindset, or maybe you got to take the Encourager Master course, or maybe you joined my member page, which by the way is still there. It's amazing. It's group coaching for only $30 a month. It's worth every single penny. What courses did you take for 2020? What podcast did you listen to in 2020 that really helped shape you? I'm hoping I make your list, but what podcast did you listen to in 2020 that shaped you? Now, these last two questions I really want you to sit with, and it may involve asking your spouse or your mother or your best friend or your twin sister. In my case, like, they will be able to also tell you if you can't answer it for yourself, and you need to sit with this, okay? Where do you store fear? A lot of fear occurred in 2020. And we became more aware of where it was manifesting itself in our body. Okay. And I want you to know where. What part of your body, where were you storing the fear? Some examples may be you store it in your chest. Your chest gets really tight. Some of you may store it in your tummy, like you get an upset tummy. Tummy, I definitely sound like a mommy when I say that word, huh? Maybe you store it in the back of your throat. Maybe you store it between your eyes, you get a stress headache, or it's the top of your head, or your ears turn red. Like, there's all kinds of places, but where do you store fear? Because when you can recognize it in your body physically, not even an emotional thing, not even a mental thing, but physically, where do you store this fear? You can name it. Like, oh, mine is in my chest. My chest is starting to get heavy. I'm having heart palpitations. This is where fear is. And then, and this is not my exercise, okay? And there's people that are way more equipped to tell you about fear and where it is stored in your body. But on a real root, like elementary level, okay? When you can name where do you store the fear, you at least recognize it in your mind. Okay, this is fear. And you can wrap your arm around fear and say, okay, I see you, I hear you, I feel you. I know that you're there. What are we going to do? Okay, and then you can play out worst case scenario in your head and best case scenario in your head, just to recognize the fear. You don't have to kick it to the curb, which sometimes we do. Sometimes we just want to kick it. And sometimes we just want to wrap our arm around it and say, hey, how you doing? I recognize that you're there, but we're going to work through this. Okay. So it's whatever approach is working for you at the time. I've really liked the whole, okay, I hear you. I see you. I feel you, but let's just work through this. Okay. I'm going to be able to do this instead of the kicking it to the curb. And then after you recognize where that fear is, I want you to just push it away as if it was an object. So if it's laying on your chest, for me, it's like a black cannon. And it's cannonball, and it's laying on my chest, and I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to throw it. I'm going to picture myself lifting this heavy ball and throwing it and watching it crumble into pieces when it hits the ground. It's just a good little mind trick that I do to go, okay, I see you. I'm going to remove you right now because I've got some things I want to do, and I can't do that when you're sitting on my chest. So let me just deal with you right now. Try to walk yourself through something like that. Where is the fear? Is it in your chest? Is it in your belly? And you're just going to pick it up and you're going to throw it and watch it crumble. And as it's crumbling, you can probably play out in your mind, what was the fear? And how do I comfort it and set it aside and allow it not to take over my thoughts anymore? Okay, then I want you to write down, where do you store joy? Because recognizing where you store joy is really important too, so that you can pursue it and repeat it. Okay, so maybe joy for you is your spouse and your kiddos will definitely recognize where you store joy. So when they see you dancing a little bit, or maybe it's humming while you're doing something mundane, what most people would think mundane, but you really like it. But recognize in your body, where do you store joy? Maybe it's you just grin more often, you're humming, maybe your cheeks hurt from smiling so much, maybe you laugh a little bit more frequently, maybe you snort more frequently, which is definitely my case. Maybe it's just an abnormal amount of energy and adrenaline. Where do you store joy? I want you to recognize it, because even in moments of fear, I can recognize like, ooh, if I could just access that part of my body, I know I would have more joy. So think about, where do you store joy, and how can I repeat more joy and store up more joy? Maybe it's a place in your home that gives you joy. Maybe it's a place outside of your home, but when you go there, you start to experience the joy in your body, and you feel it in your belly warming up, or you feel it in the back of your neck warming up, or you feel it on your chest. You just feel warm and inviting. And maybe it's a Holy Spirit moment. You feel it in the back of your arms, and you can feel him usher in. Where do you store joy? Okay, so that is how you're going to reflect and review. And hopefully the month of January, hopefully early January, wherever this podcast lands, I just want you to take the hour. Remember, I gave you a time frame. I want you to take an hour, fill this out, and sit with it. And then I'm going to have you store it. Maybe you put it in the back of your planner. Maybe you hang it on your desk. It's just a moment for you to recognize what happened and to move forward, and also to encourage you in what you want 2021 to look like. You have the power to decide what it's going to look like. You have way more power and grit and intent than you know, but you also need to reflect on what happened so that you don't repeat that, or because it's a good review, maybe you can repeat it, the parts of it that are good. You need to recognize it. So sit with this and reflect on it. Okay. It'll be on an awesome PDF as a free resource on the website, theencouragerpodcast.com. Your best moments, your worst moments, 2 to 3 highlights, your most profitable decision. That's a big one. Your best month and why. Why? What happened? Your most rewarding moment? Ooh, there was one there. I guarantee there was one in 2020 that marked you. What were the books you listened to, the courses you took, the podcast that you reflected on that really helped you to surge things up? Where do you store fear and where do you store joy? You need to recognize it inside your physical body where these things are happening. When you fill this out, keep it close to you. Also, I am so humbled by all the amazing ratings and reviews you guys gave me in 2020, and I want to make sure that I read some of those and encourage you to do the same. In the podcast world, the more ratings and reviews we get, the better I am able to attract awesome interviews and to help me rate when people are searching for someone encouraging. So this review comes from Christy Faber. After starting my own at-home business, I stumbled upon Rebecca's podcast. It has given me the many pep talks needed to get through all of things of being a mom and a business owner. Thank you, Christy, for leaving that review. And it's true. I have a lot of practical coaching that'll get you through running both your home and your business well. Thank you so much for leaving that review. Okay, encouragers, remember to reflect and review 2020 so your 2021 can just be amazing and you can be in more control of what you can do with what we're given in 2021. Until next time, encouragers, we got this. I know how you can start executing on all the things that God has equipped you to do. You can pick up my book at theencouragerpodcast.com and check out the store complete with book, journal, and the master course. Also, make sure to check out the resources tab where you'll get a hold of all the PDFs from the podcast. Thank you for tuning in, encouragers. Remember to subscribe so it's automatically on your phone. And please rate and review me. We got this, encouragers.